watched, and I think my cousins must also be watching the same presser you just watched, because my phone's blowing up in a group text, and I can only imagine you guys are all talking about the same thing. I didn't watch it. For future listeners, today is Thursday, March 25th, 2021, 2:32 p.m. Eastern Time, and I believe Biden just gave his first press conference. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. It went around an hour, maybe a little bit more, which is more than a lot of us expected it would go. But the notable points about it, I think, first of all, that everybody noticed first is how totally scripted the whole thing was. He obviously had a binder up on the podium with him, the kind that typically press secretaries have, with little tabs: China, North Korea, border crisis, and he kept flipping through that briefing binder to answer questions, sometimes with his head completely down, obviously reading line for line to what had to be a pre-scripted question. The other thing that was noticeable is that he seemed to have a list of reporters' names and their affiliations up there on the podium with him, and he was calling them in turn, but he very often, when he looked back down again, he would lose his place and oh, who was the one before? Oh, you're next. Okay, whomever. So it was terribly, terribly awkward. But then, some of the answers that he gave to questions, I'll just give you maybe the one that was, just jumped out probably at all of us. And that was when Biden said, kind of mumbling, actually, and this was at the tail end of an answer to some unrelated or other question. He was blaming President Trump for everything. And at the end of one of his replies, he says, mumbles kind of down, "My predecessor, oh God, I miss him." And so, of course, social media explodes with, "We do too, sir. We do too."
Well, so I was having this conversation the other day where part of me, I almost can't dislike Biden, because more so than he seems like the Joe Biden I vaguely remember as vice president, he seems more like and I don't say this as an insult, I say this with empathy, sincerely. He reminds me more of my late grandmother. And when I think of my late grandmother, if she was up giving a presser, I would be like, she should be in the living room. She should be in the living room with me and my cousins watching daytime movies. Her memory's gone. But, she just sat around Mimi holding her hand. When I see Biden, it's easier to dislike an Obama or whoever, or a Clinton or a Trump or whatever. When I see him, part of me is like, I feel like he's being propped up.
Yeah, maybe so. I've heard more than once from more than one person, that's elder abuse, what they're doing to him.
That's what it feels like.
And the speculation is rife. Certainly today, and certainly after this press conference, during the press conference, how long can he last? How much longer can he, stay in that position? By the way, one of the reporters asked whether he would be running for re-election in 2024. And, of course, at that point, he would literally be 82 years old.
Jeez.
And he mumbled and stumbled and basically got out that, he was going to run for re-election. But then he said something to the effect of, well, I really don't know. And there was a lot of stumbling and mumbling. Yeah. But that question and that reply, I think, were especially remarkable. That at the age of 82, at this point 78, he's planning to run for re-election again.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody listening took that very seriously. But yeah, to your point, he's just not up to this job at all.
Yeah, and again, it's one thing if it's it's one thing if it's a guy you don't like. Like, I get it. Like, Bush made a bunch of gaffes. Sure, tear him apart. I actually watched the first color video of a president speaking the other day. It was someone found it and scanned the 35 millimeter, and it was Eisenhower giving a speech, full color.
Oh.
Looked incredible. But I was watching
colorized, huh?
Yeah. No.
Colorized.
No. It was like a White House. It was in like 1955. They were using some like advanced technology. They only did one. It couldn't. Okay. It was way too expensive to do regularly.
Yeah.
No, not yet. Not colorized. Color. And
okay.
Yeah, you can tell. And I had never actually watched Eisenhower speak before, and I never realized how terrible of a speaker he was. Jumbling words.
Well, I mean, remember, his career was as a military man,
sure.
Up on and through World War II.
Well, the point
he wasn't a politician to start with.
Well, the point I'm making is like seeing that, like Bush is the only president I remember, that gaffed a lot. Seeing Eisenhower speak, to me, that shed some light. I'm like, oh, some people just can't speak. He's right. He's a general, right? So I try not to look at Biden that way. I truly think I think it's age-related, regression of the mind.
I mean, when Bush would come out with some malapropism or mangle a word or pronounce something sometime, it was obviously a mispronunciation of this or that word. But, for example, in this press conference, more than once, Biden really lost his place, not just in the briefing book or the list of reporters, but in his train of thought, and had to sort of mumble, stumble, and try to recover. I'll give you one more example. I was looking at this here. I was tweeting while it was going on, and I got my phone here. And at one point, and I forget what it was about. I think it had to do with the border crisis and the illegals pouring across, something to do with a question related to that. And something about, I think it was, when are you going to allow full transparency and reporters to come to the border and to actually be allowed inside of some of these facilities to see and to report and to photograph? And after, paging through his briefing book and giving the canned answer, whatever that was, he said this. He said, as soon as I'm in a position to implement what we're doing right now, and then a couple more mumbles, and he finished it off by saying, I don't know, to be clear.
Is this...
What was that?
Is this... Man, I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. And
it's a forlorn quest. Just give it up.
I'm stretching every credible amount book I've read, and I'm thinking okay, maybe the Nixon madman theory. Maybe it's we just throw our enemies for a loop, and they just think this guy's completely out of it, and maybe he is out of it, but maybe Kamala's pulling the strings. I'm trying to look at it who's winning from this? Who's, it's like follow the money. Who's... Well,
I mean, that's a serious question. And people were asking that in social media during the press conference. And one person, I forget who it was, said something to the effect of, world leaders are watching this right now.
Yeah.
And that's a very sobering thought.
Well, yeah, no, you're watching the commander-in-chief. You're watching this thing.
Supposed to be the leader of the free world,
yes,
who says he's going to hold China to account. He's going to do it. They're going to get it done. I think he said something to the same effect about Kim Jong-un and the regime in Pyongyang and North Korea. Yeah.
Okay, let's take this in, again, benefit of the doubt, and just purely as an exercise. Not that I believe it. Could it be like Trump? Trump's an idiot. He can't speak. You don't become a billionaire president by being an idiot. You don't have to like Obama or Hillary. They're not stupid. They're very competent. Is this the ultimate poker face? And I know there's a 1 in a million chance that's true. Is this the ultimate poker face? Just act like late stage dementia?
No. I mean, we've seen too much, and it goes back many, many months, and with all sorts of iterations, the stumbling, the mumbling, the losing the train of thought in mid-sentence, there's been too much of it caught, in live time, on video, and shown. I mean, broadcast on the various news programs. To think that it is somehow staged. Yeah. No, it's not.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of, right? Trump had to take mental acuity tests, correct?
I believe he did, and from what I recall, he aced it.
Yeah. We're not going to see that, though. We're not going to see that.
No, that will not be happening.
So let's move from poking fun at it. What's the actual implications of this? How long until he steps down or is removed?
Well, yeah.
How is he removed?
The implications, we could pivot to talk a little bit about, for example, what just happened up in Anchorage, Alaska, around a week ago.
Could you fill everyone in?
When our State Department team...
Could you fill everyone in on what happened?
Sure. So it was last Friday, almost a week ago, when a State Department team led by Secretary of State Antony Blinken traveled to Anchorage, Alaska to meet their counterparts on a Chinese delegation. And the meetings were held at the request of the U.S. side, which I think in some measure put us at a disadvantage to begin with. And they were for the purpose, from our side's perspective, for the purpose of restarting the bilateral relationship with China. Okay, fine. The top agenda items for our team included nuclear non-proliferation and climate change. And obviously, nuclear non-proliferation, that train left the station a long time ago. And climate change, well, the biggest emitter of greenhouse gases and smoke and smog and fog on the earth is China. And they are not about to be catching up to anybody else who's a signatory or a would-be signatory to the Paris climate change accords or climate accords. So those were the two top agenda items. And at least, from my perspective, there are many other topics that really ought to have been brought up. One could have started with horrific human rights abuses domestically within China, to include the horrible treatment of the Tibetan people. Mm-hmm. We don't even remember, for example, how the Han Chinese have treated the Manchurian people or the Mongolian people, because why? They've already been crushed and assimilated as a people into the Chinese empire. But how about the way Beijing has been treating the Hong Kong democracy freedom fighters? How about the ongoing aggressive belligerence against Taiwan? How about what they're doing in the South China Sea? Building up these artificial islands, which they promised never to militarize. And of course, they're all getting their own airstrip. How about the belligerence of Chinese naval vessels ramming fishing vessels from other countries like Vietnam in the South China Sea and the area around there? And then the worst of all, in my opinion anyway, and I've written an op-ed on this, I'm just waiting to get it published, and it's hopefully going to be out, I hope within a couple of days. But in any case, I wanted to mention the leader of the Chinese delegation that openly mocked the United States side, their U.S. counterparts, very undiplomatic. Gordon Chang, by the way, a terrific China expert, termed the Chinese approach, he said, off the charts arrogant. But let me go to this particular diplomat. His name is Yang Jiechi, if I'm pronouncing it right, and he led the delegation. He is termed, he's not the Minister of Foreign Affairs for China, but he's termed their top diplomat. So I guess under the foreign minister. But in any case, Yang Jiechi led the delegation on the Chinese side. And during part of the talks that were, videotaped and released on TV channels for everybody to see, at one point, well, to begin with, let me start with the beginning.
Sure.
Each side was to have given basically about a 2-minute opening statement. Well, Yang Jiechi went on uninterrupted for a full 18 minutes. Nobody interrupted him. Nobody looked at their watch and said, sir, the time was to have been about 2 minutes. No, nothing like that. 18 minutes. But in the course of that, he had the unmitigated gall to throw the Black Lives Matter movement directly into the face of Secretary Antony Blinken, who's sitting, of course, directly across the table from him. And here's what the Chinese diplomat said, quote, "The challenges facing the United States in human rights are deep-seated. They did not just emerge over the past 4 years, such as Black Lives Matter." Now, I think our side may not even have been aware of the response they should have given. And here's the backdrop to that, which I can hope that someone like former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo might have said. But here's the backdrop. So back in, 2019, maybe early 2020, the Chinese regime, the Communist Chinese Party, sent over an undercover team from the People's Liberation Army from its intelligence directorate to the Beijing consulate in Houston, Texas. Mm-hmm. Now, we might recall that then Secretary of State Mike Pompeo closed that consulate in the middle of 2020 last year. I think it was July of 2020 last year. And the reasons given were they were conducting espionage, they were engaging in intellectual property theft, and that's all perfectly true and perfectly good reasons to shut that down. But those two charges would apply equally, seems to me, to the Embassy of China in Washington, D.C., the United Nations Mission of China in New York City, and to the 4 other consulates around the country, to include another New York-based mission, one in Chicago, one in Los Angeles, one in San Francisco. But he only closed the Houston consulate, right? Well, I think the reason he did that was the backstory, and this is what happened. That PLA unit went there undercover with the mission to draw up a list through, data mining techniques, I'm not sure what, a list of Americans that they thought or assessed would be particularly vulnerable or approachable on the topic of Antifa and Black Lives Matter and protests in the streets. And then what they did is they created some TikTok videos. Remember TikTok? Yeah. And they pushed those videos out to their list that they had drawn up of Americans, urging them, showing them how, in the videos, coaching them how to do street riots. And then this diplomat, they call them wolf warriors. You've heard that term? Kind of wolf diplomats. That's what they call these people. English translation, anyway. Had the nerve to talk about Black Lives Matter, first of all, in view of the horrific human rights abuses carried out in their own country, but secondly, that they themselves were directly involved on U.S. soil in instigating riots in our streets by Black Lives Matter movement. So that's a long kind of an answer, but to your question about what was going on in Anchorage last weekend. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it gets deflected, and if no one brings up Falun Gong or Uyghur Muslims, it gets brushed right under.
Or the Christians. Christians are having a horrible time in China.
Yeah.
House meetings of Christians who dare not even meet in churches are raided by the police, who break down the doors and arrest people for praying in a private home.
Jesus. So is this, it's sort of like following the money. It's who benefits from a commander-in-chief who seems to not be all there.
Well, unfortunately, I do believe that's the case. You're spot on. And I'll refer to another video. And this one goes back, I don't know, several months anyway. It might have been the fall of last year, 2020 or thereabouts. Maybe it was early this year. It could have been early, like January of this year, 2021. But in any case, there was a video that I think came out deliberately. First of all, because the video was very professionally filmed. It wasn't somebody's iPhone camera taking the video, but a very professionally filmed video. And it was a video of a professor, Di Dongsheng is his name. And he, not just a professor, but dean at Renmin University in China. And he is in a big room, an auditorium is what it looks like. He's up on the stage and he's speaking at the microphone. There's a large audience out in the hall and they're listening. And he openly, in this video clip of it that we saw, openly was bragging about the Chinese regime, the Chinese Communist Party's ability to infiltrate and influence the elite circles, the elite power circles of the United States. And he specifically mentioned Wall Street, to your question about money, to influence Americans in the way that China wanted, to influence our policy, but through power elite circles, including especially financial circles. He said up until 2016. And then he said, and then Trump came along and we couldn't do it anymore. And he was dismayed. And then he said, basically, this is all in translation and I'm paraphrasing from that. But so we had to get rid of Trump. And the audience erupts in clapping and happy. Can't tell if they're happy, actually. They've all got masks on, but you can tell they're clapping in approval. We had to get rid of Trump. And basically what he's saying is that now things are back on track again in terms of the Chinese Communist Party's ability to influence policies of the elite or through the elite power circles in America. So there we have it.
What's terrifying is, and I know we only got 5 more minutes, is the video that you and I did, episode 370, which got me suspended for a week. And I won't even say what the topic was, but the name of the episode was CCP infiltration. That one got taken down. A friend of mine, who's a fan of the show, uploaded that video on a different YouTube account. Completely irrelevant name. It was like some video game review channel. For all the episodes, he doesn't do titles of the video. He just does the number. So it wouldn't be... Excuse me. Oops. My nose has been bleeding all morning. He just does the name. So like, for instance, this is episode 400. It's just 400.
Okay.
The thumbnail is always the same. It's just his logo. Mm-hmm. The description is always the same. It's just, this is my channel. Here's where you can get my merch, whatever. For every video, you don't know which video is which except for the numbers. Right. There's no comments allowed. It's disabled. And you can't see the like to dislike ratio. So it's like a neutered channel. That's how you can technically, that's how YouTube allows you to market it to kids, is you have to remove everything. The point is he uploaded the episode of you and I talking titled CCP infiltration. He uploaded that. YouTube didn't even let it finish uploading. He said it got flagged and removed.
Wow. Which
to me is insane, because that means they're transcribing videos and scanning them before they're uploaded.
Wow.
Which to me is that sent chills up my spine, because if you're able to not only take over media but also infiltrate big tech, you can do all of this stuff, and then as long as no one hears about it, you can just keep moving forward. Falun Gong, Uyghur Muslims, elite capture. We got to get rid of Trump. None of that matters if if the message doesn't get to the people. So to me, most people probably listening, probably tell me that sounds like a nothing burger. I just built it up to be this big thing. But to me, that's insane. It's because there was no even written words or anything. There was no comments. There was no title. There was no nothing. No search engine optimization keys. Nothing. The video was scanned before it was finished uploading, and it was taken down for inappropriate content for, quote, insinuating that widespread fraud altered the outcome of the 2020 elections. And the fact that I just said that sentence out loud, I'm interested to see whether or not this episode gets uploaded. To me, it's just...
Well, if there's going to be, a bright light perhaps at the end of the tunnel, it's the news that President Trump, and I think possibly or probably working with Mike Lindell, is preparing, is building a new social media channel. And one may hope that it is not just messaging, text messaging or posting of commentary and such, but also might be video capable. I have no idea exactly how it's being configured, but President Trump has teased the release or the putting it up within, I think he said something like 2 to 3 months from now, which is March 2021.
It's 2 to 3 months from March 2021?
Something like that, yeah.
That's when I first heard about that, I was kind of pissed off. I was like, dude, it's just, I can't even say what happened in the November election, but I was like, that just seems so, but the more I look at it, that might be the biggest thing you could do if you've got
competition.
The billions.
I mean, this is the American way, isn't it?
Yes.
It's free market competition.
Get rid of censorship.
I would expect a grand rush into such platform if and when it debuts.
Yeah, and even if it wasn't conservative oriented, just make it so there's no shadow banning or censoring. So all discussion is allowed to compete in the free marketplace. He has my 400 episode library, and I will go right to it. I hope he does. I think that's the single biggest thing he could do. If he made some sort of ecosystem of a Twitter / Instagram / YouTube, some kind of
a combination, like I said, so it can be not just posting and comments and things like that, but video also. And I don't have any technical expertise to explain how that might be, but in my mind, I hope that's what it is.
The only thing I know about that is it takes a lot. I've tried to get people to talk about that before. I'm like, could we set up a YouTube alternative? And apparently it's not technically hard. It's just, it's buku bucks.
Who better?
Who better than the billionaire president?
I've seen estimates, by the way. He came into office, President Trump, with something like, I think it was over a $4 billion fortune. And he lost about half of that in office.
Yeah.
But that's still $2 billion left, which is $2 billion more than any of us has. So.
Yeah. I hope he goes out with 2 middle fingers and just on fire, because I will jump on that flaming dump truck with him. I'll go down with him.
Yeah.
But it's 3:00. I said I'll let you go at 3:00. Next Thursday, Ms. Lopez, back on.
We'll be back.
Okay. Thank you so much. God bless America, and I might have to go watch that presser now.
All right.
All right, Claire.
Take care, Tommy. Thank you again.
Yep, take care.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.